Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Thursday 10 a.m. technique at the Miniatures Around the World online crop. Good morning. It's always fun when we start our monthly crops, and this month we are starting a little bit earlier than normal. Normally, we would be having our crop next weekend, the first full weekend of June. However, my two of my kids are heavily involved with the Air Cadets, and that is their annual ceremonial review next weekend. And so that takes up all Friday night, most of Saturday. And so I thought we'd better adjust our schedule this one time to accommodate for that. And because mom duties kick in, right? If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. I see my mom is here watching. Hello, mom. Happy birthday. It's my mommy's birthday today. And we are going to be creating a fish pond step card. We are going to be using from the Stampin' Up! May through April 2025 catalog. This is the annual catalog. We're going to be using a collection that is called the Lily Pond Lane. And I think it's a really fun collection. I was playing with it over the last weekend at the retreat at my mom's house, and it was super fun. I was playing with the ducks. So today we're going to be playing with the fish from this collection. And we're also going to be using this stamp set here, the Charming Duck Pond. And yeah, we're also going to be using some of the embellishments. These are the Dappled Dots. And so let's get started. This is a step card. And if you know anything about step cards, you know that that involves a little bit of scoring, a little bit of cutting. And so we are going to start out with a piece of cardstock that is 7 inches by 10 inches. Good morning, Deborah. And so I'm just using plain white cardstock for this project, but of course you could jazz it up with any color that coordinates with the Lily Pond Lane. And but I'm going to start out with white. So 7 inches by 10 inches. The first thing we want to do is we're going to line it up here on the 10-inch side, and we're just going to do a little bit of marking with a pencil. So let me grab my ruler and my pencil, and along this 10-inch side, we're going to mark 1 inch. So I'm just going to make a line all the way across, just a light line. We can erase it later if we want to. So that is at the 1 inch mark. And then we're also going to mark it at 7.5 inches. 7.5. So right there, we're just going to mark 7.5 inches all the way across. And that's all we need to do for marking, but we do need to do some cutting now. And so we're going to turn this 90 degrees and line it up along the 7-inch side, like so. And it's going to interfere with my piece of paper that's stuck there, but that is okay. I'm going to grab my precision blade for this. Now, if you have a paper trimmer where you can use measurements, like if you have one of the Fiskars trimmers or the Stampin' Up! Trimmer, where it's got a ruler along the cutting line, then you don't need to use one of these. You can just use your paper trimmer. Okay? So we're going to do some trimming, and we're going to line ourselves up at 2.25 inches. So 2.25 inches, right like that. Gotta just line it up. And then we're going to cut from this 1 inch line down to the 7.5 inch line, just along this 2.25 inch mark here. So starting at the 1 inch, we're going to go all the way down to 7.5. Okay? And then we're going to shift ourselves over, and we're going to line up at 4 3/4. 4 3/4, and we're going to do the same cut. We're going to cut from the 1-inch line that we marked down to the 7.5-inch line. So from the 1-inch line down to the 7.5-inch line. And that's it for cutting for that. So now we should have 2 slits going from the 1-inch line to the 7.5-inch line. The first one is at 2 1/4. The second is at 4 3/4. Now we need to turn it back to our 10-inch side. We're going to line it back up. And if you're using a scoreboard or a paper trimmer with a scoring tool, you can do that on there. I'm just going to use my ruler and my bone folder. We're going to score along this 10-inch side just between these 2 cut lines. So just in this center area here. And we're going to score first at 1 inch. So we're going to line ourselves up at 1 inch like that. And we're going to score just between our 2 lines. So just in this center section at 1 inch. Then we're going to shift over and we're going to score at 2 inches. Again, just between our 2 cut lines. Always works better if I put that there and then line up. So we're 2 inch just between those 2 cut lines. Then we're going to go to 3 1/2. Line ourselves up at 3 1/2. And we're going to score between the 2 cut lines at 3 1/2. Then we're going to make a big jump to 7 1/2. All the way over here where we marked that first line. And again, we're just going to score between our 2 cut lines. Now we need to make one more score line, and this one's easy because it's going to go all the way from the top to the bottom, straight through the whole shebang. And we're going to do that at the 5-inch mark. Right here at 5 inches. And we're just going to score from top to bottom, right through everything. All right. That is all done now. We're going to need to keep that here so we can score on or crease down our score lines. So now, because I've got the pencil on here, the easiest thing for me is just to flip it over. So I'm going to be working on this side. Now, I've got down here that 1-inch gap. This end has a larger gap. We're going to start working from the 1-inch side. And the first thing that we need to do is this 1-inch score line between the 2 lines. We need to make this a mountain fold. And that means we push the score line up the mountain from behind. And then that makes our 2 pieces of paper fold together like that. So we're going to give it a little pinch. We're not going to crease it hard, just a little pinch. So we've got now a mountain fold at this 1-inch line. Then we're going to go to the 2-inch crease line and we're going to create a valley fold. And for a valley fold, you push the score line down into the valley and then we're going to pinch. So I'll flip it over here so you can see what I'm doing. We're just pinching lightly along that score line. So we've got a mountain fold that goes up and a valley fold that goes down into the valley. Okay, now we're going to kind of alternate back and forth between mountain and valley in this center section. So we're going to go to the next score line, and this one's going to be a mountain fold. So we're going to push the score line up from behind and pinch it together, just like that, mountain fold. Our next score line is going to be a valley, so we need to push the score line down into the valley, and we'll pinch it from behind like that. You can see we're making like an accordion along here. We always have to do that. And then our last score line is here, right at the end of our slit at the 7.5, and we're going to make that a mountain fold. So we're pinching it from the front. And now you can see we've got nice little sort of stair steps happening, and that's where you get the name, the step card. Okay, our last score line here is on either side at that 5-inch mark where we went all the way across. And this one is going to be a mountain fold. And this one is going to be a mountain fold because that's the center fold in our card. So now, if we take this and scrunch it all up, it's going to have a very weird shape. but we're just going to make sure everything lines up nicely because we didn't use a scoreboard. And we're going to crease down everything very well. And then we can come with our bone folder, crease everything down. Now we need to crease all these creases in the middle. We'll go down every single one of them. We'll flip it over. We'll give it a crease from the back side. And there we go. We have created the base for our fish pond step card. And so you can see that we've got a bunch of different surfaces that we need to decorate. And to do that, I'm going to bring in some of the fun pattern papers from this collection. And because I'm kind of going with the fish pond theme as opposed to the ducks, I have a lovely piece of pattern paper that's sort of got those nice lilies from the pond. It's got lily pads all floating on the surface of the water. And so these two pieces have been cut to 2 inches by 4 3/4. And you can see as I was holding them together here that I actually cut one piece and then cut it in half. If you know, because there's such a wide gap, it doesn't really make a difference, but that's just how I did it. Okay. Now, if you want to create more layers, you could always do a layer of cardstock, a contrasting color in between your base card and your pattern paper, your DSP. However, I don't want to add too much bulk because what happens with a step card, if you have too much weight riding on your card, you find that your card starts to do this when it's on display. It just starts kind of splaying out like that because the weight is pushing down. And so I don't really want it to be an issue. But if it is an issue, then there's a way to accommodate that, and that's to make a folded piece of paper that goes in between that only allows it to spread so far. So maybe I'll show you that at the end. I didn't really plan on that, but that's a good fix if you ever have a step card that's just got too much weight and is pushing down too hard. Just make a blocker so it can only open so far. All right, let's go ahead and attach this lovely DSP to our card. These are 2 inches by 4 3/4. And we're going to attach them on either side. So we want to kind of center it in this area here, just like that. You could ink the edges on these. You could distress the edges. You could do any number of things. You could add a little doodled border. Lots of fun ways you can decorate. I'm going to keep it simple. We're going to get a little bit more intricate with a bit of the design as we go on, but we're going to keep this part simple. So again, we're going to center this and attach it on there like that. Now, in the center here, we're going to need 3 pieces to go on those steps. And I'm not going to attach them yet, but I'm going to run through the measurements. So we're going to have 3 pieces of the DSP, and this is from that same collection. I think it coordinates nicely. Kind of has an underwater feel. The back side are these cute little duckies, which we're not doing duckies today. Another day we'll do duckies, but for today, no duckies. So for these 3 sections here, we're going to need a piece that is, did I write this down? 2.5 by 3/4. We need one that is 2.25 by 1.25 and 2.25 by 2.25. Now, I just realized that I didn't write that one measurement down correctly. So that is 2, because I changed it. I decided to change it. So that's 2.5. I'm just going to fix that so that when I post the dimensions, y'all won't go, wait a minute, didn't she say it was a different measurement? So this one's a little bit wider, and that's because it's going to be at the front, and I want it to kind of span the entire distance and leave just the same amount of white space around as on the other 2 pieces. These ones, on the other hand, I will let them have their own little bit of white space around. That's why they're slightly more narrow. but we can't attach them yet. I just wanted to show you those and get them ready because we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to add some embellishing to fill in this space. We're going to make some floating fish or some swimming fish. I suppose if your fish are floating, it's not a good sign. And for that, we're going to bring in this lovely pattern paper from the Lily Pond Lane collection. And it has all these beautiful koi fish on here. And so guess what we're going to do? Yes, yes, yes. We are going to do some fussy cutting. Good morning, Connie. Nice to see you're watching. So I kind of looked at this and decided which of the fish I want. I have to use fish that are all there. So there's a few choices here, and then there's also lots of little fishes. So we're going to do this large fish, and maybe this gray one in between, this little one. So all we're going to do first is we're going to rough cut out the fish that we want. Just going to go all the way around, rough cutting it out. So there's our orange fish. There's our gray fish, and I'm avoiding the other fish because chances are, you know me, chances are I'll make another project and I will want to fussy cut some fish. So we're going to leave all the rest of them just right where they are. So there we go, last one. Okay. Now let's scooch that out of the way. So we have some space. So we're going to start, and we're going to leave a halo of the background, that lovely, pretty peacock in the background there. It's fun sometimes, instead of having a white edge, you can have a dark edge on your fussy cut items. And you will notice as I fussy cut that I do a lot of pivoting of my paper, and I try to cut more towards the join of my scissors rather than the tip of my scissors. So you'll see me adjusting as I go along, bringing it back to the start. We can trim off excess as we go, and we just work our way around. And quite often when we cut stamped images, we're cutting on cardstock, but this is DSP, so it's actually quite easy to cut. And sometimes you have to kind of remember, oh, I'm not cutting cardstock, I'm cutting DSP. So you kind of lessen the pressure that you cut with so that you don't just, whoops, accidentally lop off a fin or a tail. That wouldn't be so good. All right, so let's go ahead. And I always try to start my fussy cutting from a portion of the image that makes sense. If you start with a big area like the nose of this fish, it works out well. If you start with a smaller area like the tip of the tail, then when you come around to finishing off, you quite often end up with like a weird pokey bit, and you have to correct it, because when you come up to the tip of the tail, you know, it's a little bit harder to go curving around when it's already cut off. So if you like to have a nice smooth curve on the smaller areas, then start with a big area when you're fussy cutting. It just seems to work out better. Plus, if you've started to cut something that's tiny and thin, and then you have to come and try to manipulate it to go around it, it has a tendency to bend and flex, and then it goes wonky. So start with large areas. So like on this little fish, it's a little bit difficult because there's not any major large areas. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start right where his face is, his fishy face, and then work my way around rather than starting on the smallest things like the fins. All the way around. It doesn't take long. The more that you practice, the more comfortable you get with fussy cutting. And there is quite likely a die that is bundled with this stamp set that may even cut out the fish. Let me check that. I don't really remember. Let's take a quick look. if there is a die that cuts out the fish. No, there isn't. There's dies for cutting out the duckies that you stamp. Yeah. Sometimes Stampin' Up! Has those dies that cut out the pattern paper, which is kind of cool for those of you who do not like to fussy cut. So now we have some really cute little fish that we can add in as embellishments. And in order to do that, I have a 1/4-inch strip of acetate that I have cut. It'll be a little difficult for you to see, but I'm sure it's shining there in the lights. And so with a little piece of acetate like this, I can kind of make my fish float. So what I'm going to do is the first fish I'm going to attach from this front panel, just right here on the front. And that's why we haven't put our pattern paper on yet, because we're going to hide the acetate behind the pattern paper. I mean, it's not going to be completely hidden. If you look for it, you'll be able to see it, but we're going to make attempts. And so I'm going to get this nice little orange fishy here and kind of see how I would like him, her, it to sit on the front. And I can angle that acetate if I want. It needs to be up higher in the air because it's got to be floating above there. And this front one can overlap on this side here. It will be just fine if it does that. So now I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to trim off my acetate right there, because that's the length I need. It's not an exact length. I mean, I could tell you what the length is. Let me see. But you kind of just do it, you know, however looks good. It's 2 5/8. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach our acetate to our fish. And to do that, I'm going to use some of this really super sticky red tape. And so whatever adhesive you like that's really sticky, that's what you use. You can even use glue dots for this. You just need something that will actually adhere to the acetate, because not everything will. Okay. You could use dimensionals probably, because foam tape will often stick to acetate. However, you don't want the foam tape here because you're going to try and hide the acetate. Now, if you're like me and your 1/4-inch adhesive has gone over your 1/4-inch acetate, you're going to want to roll the edges in to make sure that none of the sticky stuff is going to get stuck to other parts of your card where you don't want it. Okay, so let's take this. We're going to just lay it there for now. And then we're going to attach our fish, stick it down, kind of gives us a visual of where we're going with it. And then we need to add some adhesive to the back side at the bottom of our acetate, like so. This kind of adhesive is not the kind you can tear. You need to cut it. It is what it is. I'm going to take the backing off. So to attach the fish, I put the adhesive behind the fish. But to attach it to the cardstock, to our card base, we're putting our adhesive on the other side of the acetate so that the back side is stuck. And there we go. Now, when this card stands up, our little fish is kind of floating there, like it's just swimming around in the nice water. Okay? Now, our next one, let's go for the big one. We're going to stick this on our second layer, our second step back here. We need to avoid this edge because it will catch on there and it'll be all weird. Just take my word for it. We also want it to stay within the confines of the edges of our card when our card is folded to put in an envelope. This ends up being a 5x7 card, so it needs to all fit in our 5x7 envelope. So you can't go above the edge of where that is. So that looks pretty good where it is right there. So if we take our acetate and kind of tuck it down on that first, or in behind the first step, we can kind of see where we need to trim off our acetate. So I'm just going to come up here by the fish's tail and trim off the length of acetate that we need. And if you really want to know, it is about 3 inches long. Okay. And then we're going to add some adhesive to the end of our acetate here so we can stick our fishy on, trim it off. I kind of cut it on an angle, so we'll trim our adhesive on an angle. Make sure it's stuck down good. Peel off our backing, make sure everything's rolled to the sticky side, because if you have sticky, especially this sticky tape, sticking where it shouldn't be, it's gonna make your card stick all together in ways that you do not want it. So let's see, we're going to stick down our fishy right about like that. And then we're going to add some adhesive to the back of our acetate strip, like so. You could probably use some liquid adhesives that would work on acetate as well. Liquid glass might work, or some such like that. But I find the tape is just easier to work with because it's instant. You don't have to wait for it to dry, and I'm impatient. Hey, Joanne! Yay, you found us! Okay, so let's figure out where we're sticking this little fishy. I find sometimes it's easier to hold it up in the air. We're going to tuck it in behind the first fishy. We're going to make sure to avoid the left front portion. And we're also going to stay within the confines of the top of our card. And we're going to stick our fishy down. And then when we pop it up, we can see we've got our 2 fishies layered now. One more fishy to go. Let's add a little bit of adhesive to the end of our acetate. We're just adding a little nubby because this last fish is super tiny. So we don't need a lot, just a little. And oops, can't tell which side has got the backing. There we go. Peel off our backing. And I need to roll my adhesive. Make sure it's not in weird places. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lay this on top of everything to decide where my little last fishy is going to go. So I think we're going to stick him right about there, like so. Stick them right on there, and then of course we can trim off our acetate like that to give us the length. If you would like to know, it is 3 1/4 inches. And then let's add some acetate, or not, yeah, some adhesive to the back of our acetate, just on the end. So this is the part of the show where it takes a little longer because we're doing the embellishing and the fun things. And then it will kind of zip along here in a minute. There we go. Make sure all our sticky business is stuck in. And then let's lift it up a little bit. We're going to attach this on this second step. Right, like that. Stick it down. And then we can go ahead and start adding our pattern paper. So again, this is our 2 1/2 by 3/4 strip. And we waited till the end to do this so that we can hide all those acetate strips in behind the pattern paper, the DSP. So let's center that in our middle section here, like so. And we're going to jump to the next one. And this is 2 1/4 by 1 1/4. To just confirm that. 2 1/4 by 1 1/4. And I will mark all these measurements and things down when I post the photos. Now for this one, I think I'm going to use a little bit of assistance because I have to try and get into the midst of all this. We can even open it up. We're going to put this piece not on this section, but on this section where we attach those acetates. And we're going to just center it on there so that we have an even amount of white space all the way around. Stick that down. And then our last piece is a square 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Scooch that up. Like so. Use my scissors and my tweezers to help me with this as well. And this is going in this final section here. So we're going to skip another section and then we'll center it in there like that. Squish it down. Excellent. Okay, so now when we fold it up, we have our cute little floating fish. We've got our beautiful patterns on either side. We've got the nice little bubbly ones that kind of give us that feel of water. And now let's add our sentiment. So from our stamp set, wherever I put it, where did I put it? I set it down here. We're going to use the happy birthday for this one. I think this would make a really cute birthday card, celebratory card. Look at all those little duckies I've got hanging around in there. And I haven't made any birthday cards for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the happy birthday sentiment off of the stamp here. And we're going to walk it off the carrier sheet. These, this makes a nice little spot to hold extra things. I colored up a whole bunch of duckies on the retreat. And now they can just hang out in there till I'm ready to use them. So this piece is going to fit onto a 1/2 inch-ish piece. Maybe even go on to something smaller, like 3/8. So 3/8 by 2 inches. So I need to cut that. I didn't cut it ahead of time. So 3/8 by 2 inches. I'm going to grab my little trimmer. And of course there's no 3/8 on here. So we're going to do 2 inches. And then, let's see. That looks a bit like 3/8. The by guessing by golly method. We're going to cut 2 of them in case we make a boo-boo. I always like to do that when I'm stamping a little sentiment. Just in case, we'll have 2 of them. Let me grab a stamp block. Lift that up. We're going to use Memento ink, so we're just going to stamp in the Tuxedo Black for this. Now let's see if we get it lined up nicely. We seasoned our stamp. I'm going to scooch this close to me so I can see what I'm doing. And stamp our happy birthday. And see how we did. Oh, look at that. Well done. Didn't need a second piece, but it's always good to have it. Alrighty. Scooch that out of the way. And now I was also trying to decide, I think I'm going to use some of these mini Stampin' Dimensionals. We're just going to pop it up. Just add 2 or 3 along here. We've got all sorts of dimension happening. We've got a step card. We've got floating fish, floating swimming fish. And now we're just going to pop this up with some foam. I'm going to add our happy birthday. And let's also add in some of these Dappled Dots, which coordinate with this collection. The Lily Pond Lane And I think maybe we'll use the orange ones because I think they look nice and it kind of ties in with the centers of the flowers. So let's grab our little pickup tool here. And let me see. We'll add a few of these. Let's add a large one here. And a couple of little ones. Maybe there. And there. And then let's also add some up here for fun. Add one there. And there. And there. And now anybody who has issues with things being out of alignment, they're going to look at my usage of those dots and go, cringe, as my daughter would say, because I went here, there, and everywhere. I didn't just start on the end. And so we'll move that out of the way so as not to bother anybody. But there we have our card. Now remember I said if there's too much weight and it starts to spread and you want to keep it from spreading, I'm going to show you that trick. I hadn't planned on it, but I'm going to show it to you. So we've got about a 3-inch gap that looks really nice on here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a 4-inch strip by maybe half an inch. There we go. And we're going to use 2 of them. Half an inch. This is just kind of a workaround if your card misbehaves. It doesn't necessarily have to be done, but it's good to know how to do it. We're going to make a 4-inch strip. There's 1. There's 2. Okay, and then we need to do some scoring on here. So we're going to bring our ruler, we're going to line it up. And we want to have a 3-ish inch gap. So we're going to just do a little score line at half an inch, at 2 inches, and half an inch. So we're scoring it in the center and we're putting half-inch tabs on either end. You can do the same thing with the second piece. So again, it's a 4-inch-ish piece. 4-inch-ish, depends on how accurately I cut it. And we're going to score half an inch in on either side and right in the center at the 2-inch mark. There we go. Now what you want to do with these is you're going to fold the center in half, and then you're going to fold our 2 little tabs up like that. So you make valley, mountain, valley. So we're going to do the same thing. Let's fold it in half. Doesn't need to be too accurate. And then we're going to fold our 2 little tabs up like that. We're going to add some adhesive on our little tabs on the outside where they're going to attach. Just like that. So on the outside here, it's easier if it's open to do that. You can use liquid glue too if you want. Okay, so now our vertical center line is going to be going up when we stick this on the inside of the card. So let's open up the edge of our card here. And I like to use my Versamat or whatever kind of ruler to do this. So we've got our center point going up. We've got our 2 tabs going out to the sides. And we're just going to line it up. Go in maybe half an inch in and half an inch up. And just stick it down like that. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to remove our backings. And it doesn't have to be too accurate, but as accurate as possible. Again, we've got our center line. We've got our 2 sticky tabs to the outside. We're going to line it up half an inch in, half an inch up, and stick it down. You always want that center fold to be pointing up because it takes up the space. If you have it pointing down, it might hang out the bottom of the card. And all we're going to do is we're going to make sure those sticky tabs are facing up, and we're going to close our card. Just like that. And now what that does is it creates a stop. So it can't open any wider than 3 inches because we've made a stop. So no matter how much weight you put on, if you put big bling or extra layers of cardstock, those little strips with just those 3 little folds will keep your card from splaying open and being disappointing. So there we have created our fish pond step card with our fun little fish floating around in there. A lovely little happy birthday. I think that would totally work for a card for a gentleman, a kid, a lady, whatever. Somebody who loves fish. You know, there's a lot of people that have really cool fish ponds, or likes to go fishing, or just loves nature. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that card come together. Liked seeing those little tips on how to kind of get things to work together. And if you create one of these yourself, be sure to take a photo of it and pop it in the comments where I post it on the event. And then we can all enjoy your creativity and be inspired. Have a wonderful rest of the day. We will be on at 11:30 for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.